almost up 100% from those lows.
Nvidia hit new all-time highs this week, but is it still just the beginning?
I really see an opportunity for this stock to rise as much as 200%.
MarketBeat's Thomas Hughes shares his bold prediction for Nvidia's future, along with his thoughts on two other tech giants that are rising with it.
It doesn't matter if Nvidia wins or AMD wins because Micron is going to win.
Is this latest run-up in AI stocks still a good time to buy? Let's dive in. Thomas, so great to have you back on a week when Nvidia hits another all-time high. What a ride this stock has been on this year. I mean, this stock was below $100 just a few months ago and now reaching new all-time highs. What's behind this surge?
Well, it's all driven by AI. The volatility over the past couple of quarters has been driven by uncertainty. Are we sure that the outlook is as robust as we think it is? But what's happened in the last 3 quarters is that the outlook has been strengthened. Demand for AI is strengthened. NVIDIA has been strengthening its deals and partnerships, and the deal cycle is accelerating. The outlook is very robust. Revenue continues to outpace expectations. Cash flow is just ridiculously good. All of these things are playing into NVIDIA's move. Analysts are loving it too. They're lifting their price targets. I think we just saw a new high target set this week, puts it near 250, I think, which is like another 65% gain. I mean, that's pretty huge.
Yeah, I want to dive into the chart because it's such an interesting story. If we go and look at Nvidia from April, I think we were up at least or around 40% since that tariff announcement in April. And let's just look at when this rise started and when we really started to see some of the biggest
Well,
jumps.
right. I mean, the chart, it's almost up 100% from those lows. And those lows were driven by sentiment that has nothing to do with NVIDIA. It was strictly tariff fears, fears about economic slowdowns, had nothing to do with AI or NVIDIA. As I was saying before, the news cycle has pretty much proven that those fears were unfounded. Now the market has had to melt back up to where it was, catch back up to the existing trend, breaking out to new highs based on the outlook, the valuation. I would say that NVIDIA stock could rise by 200% from where it is over the next decade.
That's a lot of growth still to come for an already giant company, the world's most expensive company right now, highest valued company anyway. So there's a lot of growth to be had. And that's a lot of what Jensen Huang covered in his shareholder discussion on Wednesday, talking about the future of NVIDIA. We're going to dive into that a little bit more later on in this video. But I wanted to just talk about the sector as a whole. It's not just NVIDIA, there's quite a few other stocks in the semiconductor space and the chip maker space that are all seeing a huge boost right now.
Well, right. Well, generally speaking, there are still some headwinds in legacy chip markets, but those headwinds are easing. We're seeing a lot of normalization in end markets, and it's helping just give the entire industry a more solid support base, right? And so then on top of that, there are many chip companies that are benefiting from the AI boom that are also benefiting from normalized end markets. So they're really accelerating. So Nvidia is one of those. AMD fits that bill, and so does Micron.
Yeah, all three of those stocks are doing really well right now. We talked about Micron earlier this week, and you and I did a video on AMD just a couple of weeks ago. And that's because their stock stories are just so interesting right now with all of this growth. If you're looking for other growth stories, make sure to check out our latest free premium article just for our YouTube viewers to check out. It's a list of the top 4 growth stocks that have a lot of momentum and room to run right now. You don't want to miss the names on this list. It's a really interesting read and some good names to add to your watch list. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description of this video to get that list for free today. And Thomas, let's get back to AMD. This stock was really struggling earlier this year, hitting new lows in April and continuing to downslide from there. And now we've seen a total turnaround. What's behind this? What's changed? Why are we seeing this stock rising so much right now?
AMD's chart action over the last year is a good example of, or a good talking point for market dynamics, right? AI comes onto the scene. AMD is certainly a leading player to benefit from AI, but it did not get the boost that NVIDIA did. So last year, the stock price rocketed higher on those expectations, but the reality just didn't live up to the hope then, right? So the market corrects back down to where it corrected in the spring. Tariff fears helped to accelerate that sell off, overextend it. But now the reality of AI is catching back up with AMD. NVIDIA had a first mover advantage, but AMD's catching back up with it. Sales are picking up. It's been working on its full stack of product offerings, being able to offer more products to more companies in a better manner. One of the things that was really aiding Nvidia was its ability to produce rack scale solutions. So you think that like you use a GPU to make a server, but it takes 5 or 6 or a dozen servers to make a rack, and it takes hundreds or thousands of racks to make a data center. So NVIDIA was more advanced in its ability to produce rack scale systems. One of the things AMD's been catching up with, one of its acquisitions this year, helps it to produce rack scale systems. Its next iteration of chips, MI400, is supposed to be even better than the chips now, but also packaged in a rack scale system, which means AMD has really reached that inflection point where it's going to start taking share from NVIDIA the way that we have thought it would be able to over the past year.
Yeah, I think one thing to talk about here is yes, AMD and Nvidia, they're competitors. They basically make a lot of the same things. But is there enough business? Is there enough demand that both are going to continue to rise at the rates that we're seeing right now as the future of AI continues? I think that's the most interesting point in this video that I'm looking forward to talking about is earlier this year, it seemed like AI was dead, like it was overhyped, like we'd already invested too much into AI and it wasn't really going to go anywhere else. And now just in the last couple of weeks, I hear this huge shift back to this is just the beginning. There's way more ahead for AI. We haven't even scratched the surface of where this is going to go. So, what's with that change in sentiment, and which one maybe holds more of the truth?
Earlier in the year, it was just kind of a lull in the sentiment. It was part of that shifting dynamic I talked about with Nvidia being range bound, the market consolidating, trying to understand if this outlook really is realistic or not. And the data over the last few quarters have proven that it is pretty realistic. The need for infrastructure is great. Just the examples with deals in the EU and deals with Saudi Arabia, the demand for not only business use, but for sovereign use. Countries need data centers to do their own to protect their own data, to have their own operations. So the demand for infrastructure is great. The real difference between NVIDIA and AMD is, well, one, NVIDIA was available sooner, so it's the one that people are focusing on for this initial build out. It's going to be the core of AI infrastructure, globally for a very long time. AMD, on the other hand, doesn't have quite the amount of raw computing power as NVIDIA, didn't have the rack scale solutions as soon as NVIDIA, but in many ways, its GPUs are viewed as better. It has more memory and makes it better suited for larger models and more complex tasks. So I think over time, what we'll see is that NVIDIA will be the dominating force in data center and GPUs, generally speaking, but AMD will be the leader in those higher performing, more advanced AI data centers.
I think another point to make here, the difference between these two companies, it feels a little bit like the story of the CEO. Jensen Huang is well known. He has been making this tour across Europe, really across the globe over the past few months, advocating for what you just said, which is sovereign data centers, sovereign AI within each country. He's made a case for that, traveling everywhere, meeting with everyone, and he makes lots of headlines versus I'm sure many investors out there know who the CEO of AMD is, but I don't know
Yes.
off the top of my head without
Right.
looking it up. So that's the difference, I think, between these two companies. Talk about the impact a CEO can make on the success of a company and a stock.
Well, the CEO has a lot of impact on the success of a company. The company can make a great product, but if it's not getting out there for people can see it, can understand it, they're not going to sell it. Now, what you're saying about the two CEOs, I would put Jensen Huang and Lisa Su about on equal footing. I mean, they're both very intelligent people, both have very awesome businesses, both are very critical to data center and AI and GPU and semiconductor technology. But just NVIDIA has had that first mover advantage. They literally created the GPU. They were the first ones to begin advancing GPU stack services. When AI started to gain traction, they were the ones doing it. Lisa Su and AMD are having to catch up a little bit, but they're doing a very, very good job, I think.
It's been a good stock for investors over the past few weeks, that's for sure. Let's talk a little bit more about another company that's rising right alongside NVIDIA and AMD, and that's Micron. Why are we seeing such a boost in this stock right now, too?
Micron is very well positioned for AI and data center business right now because it is the leader in HBM memory. It didn't create HBM memory, but its architecture is more advanced, provides better efficiency, more memory, more computing power for the underlying applications. And it's being used in both NVIDIA and AMD advanced AI GPUs. So when you see a surge in NVIDIA demand, Micron gets a surge. You see a surge in AMD demand, Micron gets a surge. It's getting boosted by both sides of the equation. So it doesn't matter if Nvidia wins or AMD wins because Micron is going to win selling its HBM memory.
It's a good story for all of these AI makers and everyone involved in this process. And I want to talk about that too. Why is there so much demand right now? And why do analysts and many people expect to see even more coming in the future?
For AI? Oh, that's because it is the future. I mean, it has completely altered computing. We cannot do computing the old way anymore. If you're doing it the old way, you're behind, you're way too slow, you're missing out on lots and lots and lots of opportunities. And this question kind of highlights the thought that I've been having over the last couple of weeks. It's like, who is the worst position out of all these hyperscalers for AI and data centers? And I would have to say that it's Amazon. Amazon is the first company to really lean into the cloud. They kind of created the cloud. They had the most advanced cloud network. It's the largest cloud network, but it's also the cloud network that's got the most out-of-date technology, right? So companies that are building the most new data centers today stand to take share from Amazon, and we are seeing that in the data.
Yeah, that's really interesting. This race is going so quickly and the technology is developing so fast that, yeah, people's technology get old almost as soon as it's built
Right.
sometimes. So that's an interesting perspective to share. I want to talk about some other avenues for AI, though. I think that's another part of that question of why we're seeing so much growth. I know Jensen Huang in his meeting with shareholders for Nvidia this week talked a lot about robotics and how advances in robotics are going to require more chips, more use of AI as we get robots that are also intelligent or have some reasoning.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that and maybe other developing technology further increasing the demand for what NVIDIA, AMD, Micron all bring to the table?
All right, so it's a very large, complex question. Robotics, the future, yes, it's going to be computers or machines that are able, to think and move and do things. Robotics. As far as Nvidia goes, it's an awesome move for them because it's helping them to diversify their business. You got to think originally Nvidia was a niche semiconductor company making chips for video games. Then we figured out that the video game chips are good for some other applications, and then the data center market comes to play. All right. So now NVIDIA is a data center and a game company. And there are some small other businesses on the side too. But for it to maintain its growth and maintain its size and to really stay relevant, it needs to continue expanding into these new verticals and have a more diversified business, which is what AMD has. AMD is also very big into games and GPUs, but it's also very large in PCs and embedded in the IoT, all the areas that NVIDIA wants to get into. So it's important for NVIDIA to be expanding into those markets for it to maintain its leadership position.
Very good. Well, this has been an interesting discussion. I love hearing about your thoughts on what's happening in the chip maker companies right now. I do want to end with your thoughts on how far could this go? Nvidia is already the highest valued company in the market right now, reached new all-time highs. How much further can this company grow?
Well, the forecasts are for it to sustain a pretty solid double-digit compound annual growth rate through the middle of the next decade. The P&E valuation is supposed to drop from about 36 this year to about 12x by 2035. So in this scenario, I really see an opportunity for this stock to rise as much as 200%. And if we assume that these forecasts are too low, it could rise much more than 200%.
Is it fair to say it's still early in NVIDIA's story, or are we no longer in the early phases?
We're past the early phases, but we are not past the midpoint yet, I don't think.
Very good. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for your analysis today. Let us know what you think in the comments. Are you watching all of these stocks right now? Is there one in particular that stands out to you as a lot of chance for future growth? And if you're an NVIDIA shareholder, congrats. I hope it's been a good week. Tell us about your win in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching, everyone. And as always, happy investing.